Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Robert Allen, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Benjamin Hale. Today, we remember the 80th anniversary of the sinking of HMAS Patricia Cam. HMAS Patricia Cam was and sunk while sailing toward Wessel Islands by a Japanese float plane on the of 22 January 1943. 2 sailors and 2 men of the Yolngu Nation were killed during the attack. 2 more sailors drowned after drifting away from their comrades. A sailor and another Yolngu man were mortally wounded and died shortly after reaching land the following morning. Reverend Leonard Kentish was taken prisoner by the Japanese and executed. Today, we remember the sinking of HMAS Patricia Cam. We pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. We warmly welcome Mr. Alex McGowan, President of the Naval Association ACT branch. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, present flowers of the forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Ordinary Seaman Neil Gray Penglase. Neil Penglase was born in Adelaide on the 4th of September 1922, the third son of Errol and Alice Penglase. One of 4 brothers who all enlisted for service during the Second World War, Neil Penglase enlisted in the Royal Australian Navy on the 27th of January 1942. After initial training at HMAS Cerberus, the Navy's initial training base on Western Port Bay, southeast of Melbourne, Ordinary Seaman Penglase had a number of short postings before joining HMAS Melville on the 24th of December 1942. A commissioned shore establishment located in Darwin, Melville served as an intermediate base for Australian and American personnel, aircraft and ships that were destined to travel north to the Netherlands East Indies. With enemy mine-laying and air attacks on merchant shipping and Allied vessels taking place in the waters off Darwin, the ships based out of Melbourne were kept busy with escort duties, mine sweeping, and search and rescue operations. Ordinary Seaman Penglase soon joined HMAS Patricia Cam, a former tuna fishing trawler from the Sydney Fishing Company, Cam and Sons. The ship was taken up from trade and commissioned by the Royal Australian Navy for use as an auxiliary minesweeper, with a complement of 2 officers and 17 sailors. Mainly used to transport supplies to small communities, military outposts and coast watchers. When Patricia Cam stopped at Millingimba Station on the 21st of January 1943, 6 passengers were also embarked. 5 were local Yolngu men. The other was Reverend Norman Kentish, the senior Methodist missionary in the Northern Territory, who was in charge of the local coast watchers. The following forenoon, the ship continued its passage to Elcho Island off the northeast coast of Arnhem Land. Conditions were perfect, with little breeze, flat seas, and a warm sun. By the early afternoon, most of the crew and passengers were relaxing on the deck. At around 1 p.m, a Japanese float plane, with its engine cut, dove out of the sun and released a bomb no more than 100 feet above Patricia Cam. The bomb crashed through the deck, blowing the bottom out of the vessel, and Patricia Cam began sinking. Ordinary Seaman Neil Penglase, who was below decks, was killed in the explosion and went to the bottom with the ship. He was 20 years old. Both of the ship's lifeboats were destroyed, but the rescue raft remained intact and was utilised by many of the survivors. Others clung to debris and other flotsam. The Japanese float plane made another attack and released its second bomb, which landed amongst the men in the water. Able seaman Edward Nobes and brothers Jimanboy and Jinapula Yunapingu were killed. The aircraft continued circling for another 30 minutes, with the Japanese rear gunner attempting to machine gun the survivors in the water. The plane appeared to fly away, but returned soon after, and, being a float plane, landed on the surface nearby. The rear gunner again attempted to murder the survivors bobbing in the water. One of the Japanese airmen then climbed down onto one of the aircraft's floats and, brandishing a pistol, gestured for the men in the water to come closer. When the invitation was not taken up, The aircraft taxied over to another group, and Reverend Kentish was hauled from the water and taken aboard the aircraft, which then took off. The Japanese airmen left 20 men in the water to their fate. 2 men who were unable to make it to the main group disappeared after night fell and were never seen again. In all, 5 of the 19 sailors and 3 of the Yulnu men died as a result of the Japanese sinking of HMAS Patricia Cam. The third being Milirama Marika, who died ashore. The 16 survivors were rescued by HMAS Kuru a week later. Reverend Norman Kentish was taken to the Japanese base at Dobe Island, where he was interrogated, endured severe beatings, and tortured before being beheaded on the 4th of May. Penglase remains were never recovered, and today his name appears on the Plymouth Naval Memorial in Devon, England. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Ordinary Seaman Neil Gray Penglase, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea. No flowers rest at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, avast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.